Ryan had been working at the same office for 3 years now. Every single morning felt like a copy of the one before. Wake up, shower, coffee, drive to work, sit at his desk, and pretend everything was fine. But nothing was fine. Nothing had been fine for a long time. His desk was positioned near the window, which was nice because he could stare outside when work got boring. But the real reason he loved that spot was different. 2 desks away sat someone who had completely changed his world without even knowing it. Her name was Maya, and she had this way of lighting up every room she walked into. Maya wasn't just beautiful. Sure, she had kind eyes and a smile that could make anyone's day better. But it was more than that. She was smart, really smart. The kind of person who could solve problems that left everyone else confused. She was also funny in this natural way that never felt forced. When she laughed, it was genuine. When she talked, people actually listened. Ryan remembered the first time they had a real conversation. It was about 6 months after he started working there. He had messed up a client presentation, and he was sitting at his desk feeling terrible about it. Maya walked over with 2 cups of coffee and sat down next to him. She didn't say anything at first, just handed him the coffee. Then she told him about the time she accidentally sent an email complaining about a client to that exact same client. They both laughed until their stomachs hurt. After that day, they became friends. The kind of friends who grabbed lunch together, shared inside jokes during boring meetings, and texted each other funny things they saw online. For Maya, it seemed like just a normal friendship. For Ryan, it was everything. Every conversation felt important. Every smile she gave him felt like a gift he didn't deserve. But Ryan never said anything about his real feelings. How could he? They worked together, and mixing friendship with feelings seemed like a terrible idea. What if she didn't feel the same way? What if telling her ruined everything they had? So he stayed quiet. He laughed at her jokes, listened to her stories about bad dates, and died a little inside every time she mentioned going out with someone else. The worst part was lying to himself every day. He would tell himself that his feelings would fade, that this was just a silly crush that would go away if he ignored it long enough. But feelings don't work that way. The more time he spent with Maya, the deeper he fell. He noticed everything about her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The way she hummed softly when she was happy. The way her whole face changed when she talked about something she cared about. Ryan's friends had started to notice something was off. His best friend Chris would ask him why he always seemed distracted. His sister kept asking why he never wanted to go on the dates she tried to set up for him. But Ryan couldn't explain it to them. How do you tell people that you're in love with someone who only sees you as a friend? How do you admit that you're too scared to risk everything for a chance at something real? At night, lying in bed, Ryan would replay conversations with Maya in his head. He would think about all the things he wanted to say but couldn't. He wanted to tell her that she was the first person he thought about when he woke up and the last person on his mind before he fell asleep. He wanted to tell her that her happiness mattered more to him than his own. He wanted to tell her that he loved the way she saw the world, full of possibilities and hope even on hard days. But morning would come, and with it, fear would return. Ryan would see Maya at work, and all those words would get stuck somewhere between his heart and his mouth. He would smile, make small talk, and pretend everything was normal. He became an expert at hiding his feelings, at keeping his face neutral when she talked about other guys, at acting like her friendship was enough when it was slowly breaking him apart. Maya, though, was more observant than Ryan realized. She had always been good at reading people, at sensing things they weren't saying. She noticed the way Ryan's voice changed slightly when he talked to her. She noticed how he always seemed to be there when she needed help, how he remembered little details about her life that most people forgot. She noticed the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. At first, Maya thought she might be imagining things, but as months passed, she became more certain. Ryan had feelings for her. She could feel it in the way he acted around her, in the careful distance he maintained, in the things he didn't say. And the truth was, she had feelings for him too. She had for a while now. But Maya was patient. She understood that some people needed time to find their courage. She understood that Ryan was scared, and pushing him would only make him pull away further. So Maya waited. She gave him chances to open up, created moments where he could tell her how he felt. She would mention being single, would talk about how nice it was to have someone who really understood her, would sometimes touch his arm in a way that lingered just a second longer than necessary. But Ryan never took those openings. He would smile, change the subject, or make a joke to deflect. The office around them continued its normal rhythm. Coworkers came and went. Projects were completed, deadlines were met. But between Ryan's desk and Maya's desk, there existed this invisible tension that nobody else seemed to notice. Two people who cared about each other, both too afraid to bridge the gap between friendship and something more. Ryan had started writing things down in a journal late at night. Things he wanted to say to Maya but never would. Pages and pages of honest feelings that would never see daylight. Sometimes he would type out text messages, long confessions of everything he felt, but he would always delete them before hitting send. The fear of rejection was too strong. The fear of losing her completely was even stronger. What Ryan didn't understand yet was that silence had its own cost. Every day he didn't speak up was another day of pretending, another day of distance, another day of missing out on something that could be beautiful. And Maya, patient as she was, couldn't wait forever. Everything changed during the company retreat. Once a year, the whole office would go to this resort in the mountains for team building. Ryan usually dreaded these trips because they meant awkward trust exercises and forced fun. But this year felt different because Maya would be there too. The bus ride up to the mountains took about 3 hours. Ryan had grabbed a window seat and was listening to music when Maya appeared next to him. She had this big smile on her face as she asked if the seat was taken. Ryan's heart jumped in his chest, but he just shook his head and moved his bag. For 3 hours, they talked about everything and nothing. Maya told him about her childhood growing up in a small town. Ryan shared stories about his younger brother and their silly competitions. The time flew by so fast that Ryan was almost disappointed when they arrived. The resort was beautiful. Tall pine trees surrounded the property, and you could see mountains in every direction. The air smelled clean and fresh. Nothing like the city they had left behind. Everyone gathered in the main hall where their boss explained the schedule for the next 3 days. There would be team-building activities, workshops, and free time to explore the area. The first activity was announced and Ryan felt his stomach drop. They would be partnered up for various challenges throughout the retreat. When his boss started reading the pairs, Ryan held his breath. Then he heard it. His name followed by Maya's name. They were partners. Maya turned to him with that bright smile and said this would be fun. Ryan managed to smile back, but inside he was panicking. 3 days working closely with Maya. 3 days of trying to act normal while his heart was doing backflips. The first challenge was a puzzle that required teamwork and communication. Ryan and Maya worked well together, which didn't surprise him. They had always been in sync at work. Maya would start a sentence and Ryan would finish it. They solved their puzzle faster than most other teams. But it wasn't the winning that mattered to Ryan. It was the way Maya's eyes lit up when they figured out a tricky part. It was the way she high-fived him without hesitation. It was being close to her without the usual office walls between them. That evening there was a bonfire. Someone brought a guitar, and people were singing old songs and laughing. Ryan found a spot on a log near the fire, watching the flames dance against the dark sky. Maya sat down next to him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The warmth from the fire mixed with the cool mountain air created this perfect temperature. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying the moment. Then Maya started talking. Really talking. Not the surface-level conversations they usually had at work, but deep, honest things. She told Ryan about her dad, who had passed away when she was in college. She talked about how hard it was to act strong for her mom while dealing with her own grief. She talked about feeling lost sometimes, like she was pretending to have everything figured out when she really didn't. Ryan listened to every word. He had never heard Maya open up like this before. When she finished, there was moisture in her eyes that reflected the firelight. Without thinking too much about it, Ryan started sharing too. He told her about his relationship with his father, which had always been complicated. His dad was the kind of man who showed love through criticism, who thought being tough would make his son stronger. Ryan talked about never feeling good enough, about always trying to prove himself and never quite succeeding. Maya listened the same way he had listened to her, with complete attention, without judgment, without trying to fix anything. When he finished talking, she didn't offer empty comfort or easy solutions. She just said that she understood, and somehow that was exactly what he needed to hear. In that moment, sitting by the fire sharing their deepest hurts, Ryan felt closer to Maya than he had ever felt to anyone. The next day brought more activities. There was a rope course that had everyone nervous. Ryan wasn't great with heights, but he pushed through because Maya was his partner, and he didn't want to let her down. When it was Maya's turn to cross a particularly scary section, Ryan could see she was frightened. He stayed right below her, talking her through each step, telling her she was doing great, promising he wouldn't let anything happen to her. Then came the trust fall exercise. Ryan had always thought these were silly, but when it was Maya's turn to fall and his turn to catch her, everything felt different. She stood on the platform with her back to him, arms crossed over her chest. The instructor counted down, 3, 2, 1, and she fell. Ryan caught her, his arms strong and steady, but his hands were shaking. For a few seconds he held her and the whole world seemed to stop. Their eyes met and something passed between them. Something real and undeniable. Maya whispered that he was shaking. Ryan managed to say he had her, trying to sound confident. But his voice cracked slightly, giving him away. As he helped her stand up, their hands stayed connected for just a moment longer than necessary. Neither of them said anything about it, but they both felt it. That moment changed something between them. That night, after all the scheduled activities ended, Ryan couldn't sleep. He stepped outside the cabin and found Maya already there, sitting on the steps looking up at the stars. The sky was incredible, full of stars you could never see in the city. She patted the spot next to her and Ryan sat down. They talked until almost 3 a.m. about dreams and fears and all the things they wanted from life. Maya talked about wanting to start her own business someday. Ryan shared his secret love for photography that he had never pursued seriously. They talked about places they wanted to travel and things they wanted to learn. Every word felt important, like they were showing each other the truest versions of themselves. When they finally said goodnight, Ryan lay in bed replaying everything. The conversations, the moments of connection, the way Maya looked at him like she really saw him. For the first time in 3 years, he thought maybe, just maybe, he should tell her how he felt. Maybe she wouldn't run away. Maybe she felt something too. But as the sun rose the next morning, doubt crept back in. What if he was reading too much into everything? What if she was just being a good friend? The fear that had kept him silent for so long was still there, whispering that it was safer to stay quiet, safer to keep things the way they were. Ryan got dressed and went to breakfast, and when he saw Maya across the room, he smiled and waved like everything was normal. Because that's what he always did. He played it safe. Back at the office, everything felt different but also exactly the same. The retreat was over, but something had shifted between Ryan and Maya. Their co-workers noticed it too. The way they gravitated toward each other during meetings. The inside jokes that nobody else understood. The looks that lasted just a bit too long. Their friend from accounting, Lisa, cornered Ryan in the break room one afternoon. She had this knowing smile on her face as she poured her coffee. She told Ryan that everyone could see what was going on between him and Maya. Ryan tried to play it off, saying they were just friends. Lisa laughed and told him he wasn't fooling anyone. She said life was too short to waste time being afraid, and if he had feelings for Maya, he should just tell her. Ryan's best friend Chris said basically the same thing when they met for basketball that weekend. Chris had known Ryan since high school, and he could always tell when something was bothering him. During a break in their game, Chris asked directly if Ryan was ever going to do anything about his feelings for Maya. Ryan sat on the bench, bouncing the basketball and avoiding eye contact. He admitted that he wanted to tell her but didn't know how. Chris sat down next to him and got serious. He reminded Ryan about their friend Tommy, who had spent years in love with a girl but never said anything. By the time Tommy finally got the courage to speak up, she was engaged to someone else. Chris looked Ryan in the eye and told him not to be like Tommy. He said rejection was painful, but regret was worse. Those words stuck with Ryan for days. At work, things continued to get more intense. Maya would bring Ryan coffee in the morning, always fixed exactly how he liked it. Ryan would leave little notes on her desk when she was having a rough day. They started staying late together, working on projects but also just talking. The office would empty out, and it would be just the two of them in the glow of computer screens. One evening, Maya was stressed about a presentation she had to give to some important clients. Ryan stayed late to help her practice. They ordered takeout and spread papers all over the conference room table. For hours, they worked through her presentation, with Ryan giving feedback and Maya making adjustments. Around 9 o'clock, Maya finally felt ready. She thanked Ryan, and when she hugged him, it felt different from other hugs. It lasted longer. Ryan could smell her shampoo and feel her heartbeat against his chest. When they pulled apart, there was this moment where they just looked at each other, and Ryan almost said it. The words were right there, ready to come out. But then Maya's phone rang, breaking the spell, and the moment passed. Ryan decided he needed a plan. He couldn't keep waiting for the perfect moment because perfect moments didn't exist. He would ask Maya to dinner somewhere nice but not too fancy, somewhere they could talk. He spent 3 days working up the courage and rehearsing what he would say. He even called his sister for advice, which was rare because she usually just made fun of him. His sister told him to keep it simple and honest. Don't make some big dramatic speech. Just tell Maya he cared about her and wanted to take her on a real date. She reminded him that Maya clearly liked spending time with him, so there was already something there to build on. Ryan felt a little better after that call. He decided he would ask Maya on Friday at the end of the work week. Friday came and Ryan was a nervous wreck. He could barely focus on work. He kept checking the clock, watching the hours crawl by. Maya seemed to sense something was up because she asked him twice if he was okay. Ryan just blamed it on being tired. Finally, 5 o'clock arrived. Most people started packing up to leave. Ryan walked over to Maya's desk, his heart pounding so hard he thought she might be able to hear it. Maya looked up at him with a smile and asked what was up. Ryan opened his mouth to ask her to dinner, but the words got tangled. Instead, something completely different came out. He started telling her about this friend of his who had feelings for someone at work. This friend didn't know what to do because they were worried about making things awkward. As Ryan talked, he realized how obvious he was being, but he couldn't stop himself. He was using the oldest trick in the book, talking about a friend when he really meant himself. Maya listened with that patient expression she always had. When Ryan finally finished his rambling story about his imaginary friend, Maya tilted her head slightly. She said his friend should probably just tell this person how they feel. She said most people appreciate honesty, even if the feelings aren't returned. Then she added something that made Ryan's stomach flip. She said his friend should tell this person soon before someone else does. Ryan drove home that night feeling like an idiot. He had completely chickened out. Instead of being honest, he had hidden behind some made-up story that probably fooled nobody. He sat in his apartment eating pizza straight from the box and feeling sorry for himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Chris asking how it went. Ryan texted back one word: disaster. But he didn't tell Chris the worst part. The worst part was seeing the slight disappointment in Maya's eyes when he didn't say what she was clearly waiting for him to say. The worst part was knowing that she probably knew exactly who he was talking about, and he still couldn't just be direct. The worst part was feeling like a coward. The weekend passed slowly. Ryan barely left his apartment. He ignored calls from his family and declined an invitation to hang out with friends. He just needed time to figure out what to do next. On Sunday night, he made a decision. Monday morning, he would walk into work and ask Maya to dinner properly. No more hiding. No more stories about imaginary friends. Just direct, honest communication. He set his alarm early so he could get to the office before most people and catch Maya when she arrived. Monday morning came and Ryan's alarm went off at 6. He got ready, practicing what he would say in the mirror. He drove to work with his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. He got to the office at 7:30 and made himself some coffee. He waited at his desk, watching the door for Maya to arrive. But when Maya walked in at 8:15, she wasn't alone. Walking next to her, carrying 2 cups of coffee, was someone Ryan had never seen before. The guy was tall, dressed in an expensive suit, and had the kind of confident smile that came easy to people who never doubted themselves. He said something that made Maya laugh, that real laugh that Ryan loved hearing. They walked toward Maya's desk, and Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Maya spotted Ryan and waved, walking over with the guy following behind her. She introduced him as Blake, a new executive who had just transferred from their company's West Coast office. Blake shook Ryan's hand with a firm grip and made some joke about how he hoped the East Coast office was ready for him. Ryan forced a smile and welcomed him, but inside something was already breaking. Blake became a regular presence in the office, and Ryan hated every second of it. The new guy was everything Ryan wasn't: confident without trying, smooth in conversations, the kind of person who made friends instantly. And worst of all, Blake was clearly interested in Maya. It started small. Blake would stop by Maya's desk to ask questions about office procedures or company culture. Then he started bringing her coffee in the morning, the same way Ryan used to do. Within a week, Blake had asked Maya to lunch. Maya said yes, and Ryan watched them leave together feeling like someone had punched him in the chest. Ryan tried to tell himself it didn't mean anything. Maya was friendly with everyone. She was probably just being nice to the new guy, helping him adjust to the office. But deep down, Ryan knew better. He could see the way Blake looked at Maya. He recognized it because it was probably the same way he looked at her when he thought nobody was watching. The lunches became regular. Blake would swing by Maya's desk around noon, and they would head out together. Sometimes they would come back laughing about something that happened at the restaurant. Other times they would be deep in conversation, barely noticing anyone else around them. Ryan started eating lunch at his desk, unable to watch them together. Chris noticed that Ryan was in a bad mood and called him out on it. They met for drinks after work, and Ryan finally admitted everything. He told Chris about the retreat, about almost telling Maya how he felt about chickening out with that stupid story about a friend. Then he told Chris about Blake and how he was doing everything Ryan should have done months ago. Chris didn't sugarcoat it. He told Ryan this was his own fault. He had been given a million chances to tell Maya how he felt, and he had wasted all of them. Now someone else was making a move, and Ryan was just sitting back watching it happen. Chris asked what Ryan was going to do about it. Ryan didn't have an answer. 2 weeks after Blake arrived, Ryan overheard him asking Maya out to dinner. Not lunch, but dinner. An actual date. Ryan was at the printer, and they were standing near Maya's desk, not realizing he was close enough to hear. Blake was smooth about it, mentioning this new restaurant downtown that had great reviews. He said it would be nice to get to know her better outside of work. There was a pause that felt like it lasted forever, and then Maya said yes. Ryan felt sick. He grabbed his papers from the printer and walked back to his desk like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. He sat down and stared at his computer screen without seeing anything. His hands were shaking. His mind was racing. This was really happening. Maya was going on a date with Blake, and it was entirely Ryan's fault for being too scared to take a chance. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying 3 years of moments with Maya. All the conversations, all the almost moments, all the chances he had let slip away. He thought about what Chris had said. This was his fault. He had nobody to blame but himself. The next few days were torture. Ryan tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. He started staying later at the office, partly to avoid rush hour traffic, but mostly because he didn't want to go home to his empty apartment, where he would just overthink everything. He was working on a report late one Wednesday when he realized someone else was still there. Maya. She walked over to his desk and commented that he had been working late a lot recently. Ryan didn't look up from his computer, just said he had a lot to catch up on. Maya sat on the edge of his desk, forcing him to acknowledge her. She told him directly that he had been avoiding her. Ryan tried to deny it, saying he was just busy with work. But his voice lacked conviction, and Maya didn't buy it. The office was completely empty now. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. The cleaning crew had already been through. It was just Ryan and Maya in the fluorescent lights and silence. Maya said his name softly, and something about her tone made Ryan finally look at her. She asked why things had changed between them. She said they used to talk all the time, but now he barely looked at her. She wanted to know what happened. Ryan wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to explain that watching her with Blake was killing him, that he had been in love with her for years, that he was a coward who had wasted every chance she had given him. But all he said was that nothing was wrong. He was just stressed about work. Maya's expression showed she didn't believe him, but she didn't push harder. She stood up and started to walk away. Then she stopped and turned back. She told Ryan that she and Blake were just friends. She said she knew what it probably looked like, but Blake was going through a rough divorce and just needed someone to talk to. She said she had been trying to help him adjust to the new city. The words hung in the air between them, and Ryan realized this was Maya giving him another opening. Another chance to say something real. But instead of taking it, Ryan just nodded and said that was nice of her. Maya looked at him for a long moment, and Ryan could see something in her eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or frustration, or sadness. She wished him good night and walked toward the elevator. Ryan watched her go, and when the elevator doors closed, he put his head in his hands. He sat there alone in the empty office, and something inside him finally broke. Not in a dramatic way, but quietly, like a thread that had been pulled too tight for too long. He was so tired of being afraid, so tired of watching life happen instead of living it, so tired of playing it safe and ending up with nothing. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened a new message to Maya. He started typing everything he felt. That he loved her. That he had loved her for years. That he was sorry for being such a coward. That watching her with Blake made him realize what he was losing. His fingers moved across the screen, pouring out 3 years of silence into paragraphs of truth. When he finished, his thumb hovered over the send button. For 5 full minutes, Ryan stared at that message. This was it. If he sent this, there was no taking it back. Everything would change. Maya would know how he felt, and she would either feel the same way or she wouldn't. The friendship they had might survive or it might not. It was the biggest risk he had ever considered taking. Then Ryan thought about Tommy, Chris's friend who waited too long. He thought about all the nights he had spent alone wishing things were different. He thought about Maya's face when she asked why he was avoiding her. He thought about being old and looking back at this moment with regret. His thumb moved toward the send button, but at the last second he deleted the message instead. Every word gone. Ryan locked his phone, picked up his things, and went home. The next morning, Ryan woke up with a headache and a sense of emptiness. He had barely slept, his mind replaying the deleted message over and over. He got ready for work on autopilot, not even tasting his coffee or hearing the radio in his car. When he walked into the office, he kept his head down and went straight to his desk. Maya arrived about 30 minutes later. She walked past Ryan's desk and said good morning like she always did. Ryan mumbled something back without making eye contact. He could feel her standing there for a moment, probably waiting for him to say more, but he didn't. Eventually, she walked away. The day dragged on with Ryan burying himself in work, using spreadsheets and reports as a shield against his own thoughts. At lunch, Ryan saw Blake heading toward Maya's desk again. He grabbed his jacket and left the building before they could invite him along. He walked to a small park a few blocks away and sat on a bench eating a sandwich he didn't want. He watched people pass by, all of them seeming to have their lives figured out in ways he didn't. His phone buzzed. It was his sister. She had texted asking how things were going with Maya. Ryan ignored it. Then Chris texted asking if he wanted to grab dinner. Ryan ignored that too. He just wanted to be alone with his misery. After about 40 minutes, he walked back to the office, dreading the afternoon ahead. When Ryan got back to his desk, there was a note. A physical note written on actual paper sitting on his keyboard. He recognized Maya's handwriting immediately. The note said they needed to talk and asked him to meet her in the conference room on the 3rd floor at 6 o'clock. Ryan's heart started racing. This was it. Maya had finally had enough of his weird behavior. She was going to confront him, and he was going to have to either tell her the truth or come up with some believable lie. The afternoon was the longest of Ryan's life. Every minute felt like an hour. He tried to work but couldn't focus on anything. His mind kept jumping between scenarios. Maybe Maya had figured out his feelings and wanted to let him down gently. Maybe she was angry about him being distant. Maybe Blake had said something. The possibilities were endless and all of them were terrible. At 5:30, most people started leaving. Blake stopped by Maya's desk to say goodnight, and Ryan felt a flash of jealousy so strong it surprised him. By 5:45, the office was nearly empty. Ryan got up from his desk and walked to the elevator. His legs felt heavy, like he was walking toward something he couldn't come back from. He took the elevator to the 3rd floor and found the conference room Maya had mentioned. The door was closed. Ryan stood outside for a moment, gathering courage. He could just leave. He could text Maya saying something came up, but he knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would just delay the inevitable. He knocked softly and heard Maya's voice telling him to come in. Ryan opened the door and stepped inside. Maya was sitting at the conference table, and the evening light coming through the windows made her hair glow slightly. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. She was always the confident one. Ryan closed the door behind him and sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and heavy. Then Maya spoke. She said she couldn't do this anymore. Ryan felt his stomach drop, assuming she meant their friendship. But Maya kept talking. She said she couldn't keep pretending not to notice. She couldn't keep waiting for him to say something. She was tired of the game they had been playing. Her voice was gentle but firm, and Ryan realized she wasn't angry. She was hurt. Maya told him that she had known for a long time how he felt. She had seen it in the way he looked at her, in the way he acted around her, and all the little things he did that went beyond friendship. She said she had been patient because she understood that opening up was scary. She had given him chances, created opportunities for him to be honest, but he never took them. And now she didn't know what to do anymore. Ryan sat there frozen. Maya knew. She had known all along. He felt exposed and vulnerable in a way he never had before. He wanted to say something, but his throat felt tight. Maya continued, saying that she needed to know where they stood. She said their friendship meant everything to her. But she couldn't keep wondering if there might be something more. She needed clarity, even if the truth was hard to hear. Then Maya said something that made Ryan's heart stop. She said she had feelings for him too. Real feelings that went beyond friendship. She had for a while now. But she needed him to be brave enough to meet her halfway. She couldn't be the only one taking risks. She deserved someone who would fight for her, not someone who hid behind fear. Ryan felt like he couldn't breathe. Everything he had wanted to hear for 3 years, Maya had just said out loud. She had feelings for him. She wanted something more. But she was also calling him out for being a coward, and she was right. He had wasted so much time being afraid when she had been waiting for him all along. Maya leaned forward slightly and said the words that would change everything. She smiled, but it was a sad smile. She told him to just say it. She said she could hear what he was too afraid to admit. The words hung in the air between them, a challenge and an invitation at the same time. This was his last chance. No more hiding. No more excuses. Just truth. Ryan opened his mouth and nothing came out at first. Then he started talking, and once he started, he couldn't stop. The words tumbled out messy and imperfect, but completely honest. He told Maya he had been in love with her since about 6 months after they met. He told her he thought about her constantly, that she was the first person he wanted to share good news with and the person he wanted to see on bad days. He told her about all the messages he had typed and deleted, about the confession he almost sent the night before but erased at the last second. He told her he was terrified of losing her friendship, but he was more terrified of never knowing what they could be together. He admitted he had been jealous of Blake and that watching them together had forced him to realize he couldn't keep hiding anymore. Ryan's voice cracked as he told Maya that he knew he didn't deserve another chance. He had wasted too many already. He told her he was sorry for being such a coward, for making her wait, for not being brave enough to risk everything for her. By the time he finished talking, his eyes were wet and his hands were shaking. He had finally said everything, and now all he could do was wait for her response. Maya was quiet for a moment that felt like forever. Then she stood up and walked around the table. Ryan thought maybe she was leaving, but instead, she stopped right in front of him. She reached out and took his hands, pulling him to his feet. Her eyes were shining with tears too, but she was smiling. A real smile this time, full of relief and joy and something that looked a lot like love. She told him she turned Blake down. Blake had asked her on a real date the week before, and she had said no. She explained that she was waiting for Ryan, hoping he would finally find his courage. She told him she had been scared too, scared that maybe she was wrong about his feelings, scared that pushing him would make him run away. But she couldn't wait anymore. She needed to know. Then Maya stepped closer, and suddenly there was no space between them at all. She whispered that she had been waiting for 3 years for him to kiss her, and if he didn't do it now, she was going to kiss him instead. Ryan didn't need to be told twice. He leaned in and kissed her, and it was everything he had imagined and more. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like they were both still afraid this might not be real. Then it deepened. 3 years of held-back feelings pouring into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless and smiling. Maya laughed and said they were both idiots for waiting so long. Ryan agreed completely. They talked for another hour, sitting close together at the conference table, planning their first official date and laughing about all the time they had wasted dancing around their feelings. As they left the office that night, walking to the parking lot together, Ryan felt lighter than he had in years. The fear that had controlled him for so long was gone, replaced by excitement about the future. Maya grabbed his hand as they walked, and it felt natural, like they had been doing this forever. 3 years later, Ryan and Maya would tell this story at their wedding. They would laugh about how long it took him to say 3 simple words and how patient she had been while waiting. Their friends would joke about it, and Blake, who had become a good friend to both of them, would give a speech about being the catalyst that finally pushed them together. But standing in that parking lot on that evening, they didn't know about weddings or futures. They just knew that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is also the most important. That silence has a cost. That waiting for perfect moments means missing real ones. And that love requires courage from both people to meet in the middle and take a chance on something beautiful.